Take a seat. Is this your first job?
Yes, Doctor.
I'm going to ask you a few questions. Write them down. In English, please. Who was your father? Put that at the head of the page, and the reply immediately underneath for quick reference.
I've no idea who my father was.
I'd better be frank, Miss Barclay. I can't employ you if you're in any way miraculous. It'd be contrary to established practice. You did have a father.
Oh, I'm sure I did. My mother was frugal in her habits, but she'd never economise unwisely.
You had a father. Why can't you produce him?
He deserted my mother many years ago. She was the victim of an unpleasant attack.
Was she a nun?
No, she was a chambermaid at the station hotel.
Pass that large leather-bound volume, will you? I must check your story to safeguard my interests, you understand. Station hotel?
Yes.
Oh, yes, here we are. It's a building of small architectural merit, built for some unknown purpose at the turn of the century. It was converted into a hotel by public subscription. I stayed there myself once as a young man. It has a reputation for luxury, which baffles the most undemanding guests. Your story, in the main, appears to be correct. This admirable volume, of course, omits most of the details, which is only to be expected in a publication of wide general usage. Make a note to the effect that your father is missing. Say nothing of the circumstances. It might influence my final decision. Is your mother still alive? Or is she too unaccountably vanished? That is a trick question. Be careful. You could lose marks on your final scoring.
I haven't seen my mother for many years. I was brought up by a Mrs. Barclay. She died recently.
From what cause?
An explosion due to a faulty gas main killed her outright and took the roof off the house.
You applied for compensation?
Just for the roof.
There are no other victims of the disaster?
Yes. A recently erected statue of Sir Winston Churchill was so badly injured that the George Medal has been talked of. Parts of the great man were actually found embedded in my stepmother.
Which parts?
I'm afraid I can't help you there. I was too upset to supervise the funeral arrangements, or indeed to identify the body.
Surely the Churchill family did that.
Yes, they were most kind.
You had a unique experience. It's not everyone who's had their stepmother assassinated by the North Thames gas board. Can I get you an aspirin?
No, thank you, sir. I don't want to start taking drugs.
Your caution does you credit, my dear. Now, I have to ask a question which may cause you some embarrassment. Please remember that I'm a doctor. What is your shorthand speed?
I can manage 20 words a minute with ease, sir.
And your typing speed?
I haven't mastered the keyboard. My money ran out, you see.
Or perhaps you have other qualities which aren't immediately apparent. Lie on that couch.
Why, Doctor?
Oh, don't ask questions. That is the first lesson that a secretary must learn. Kindly remove your stockings. I wish to see what effect your stepmother's death had upon your legs.
Isn't this rather unusual, Doctor?
No fear, Miss Barclay. What I see upon the couch isn't a lovely and desirable woman. It's a sick mind in need of psychiatric treatment. The body is of no interest to a man of my stamp. A woman once threw herself at me. I needn't tell you this is spoken of in confidence. She was stark naked. She wished me to misbehave myself. And you know, all I was conscious of was that she had a malformed navel. That's how much notice I take of women's bodies.
Please forgive me, Doctor. I wasn't meaning to suggest that your attentions were in any way improper.
Yes, as I thought. You have a febrile condition of the calves. Oh, you were quite wise to have a checkup. Undress.
I've never undressed in front of a man before.
I shall take into account your inexperience in these matters.
I couldn't allow a man to touch me while I was unclothed.
I shall wear rubber gloves.
How long would I have to remain undressed?
Well, if your reactions are normal, you should be back on your feet in next to no time.
I'd like another woman present. Is your wife available?
Now, Mrs Prentice is attending a more than usually lengthy meeting of her coven. She won't be back till this evening.
I could wait until then.
Oh, I haven't the patience, my dear. I have a natural tendency to rush things. I won't trouble you with the details of my private life until you're dressed. Kindly put your clothes on the chair provided. I must ask you not to mention this examination to my wife. I'm not doing it on the health scheme, you see. She'll be sure to send you a bill, and that will be open to misunderstanding.
What is Mrs Prentice like, Doctor? I've heard so many stories about her.
My wife is a nymphomaniac, consequently like the Holy Grail. She's ardently sought after by young men. I married her for her money, and upon discovering her to be penniless, I attempted to throttle her. She escaped my murderous fury, and I've had to live with her malice ever since.
Poor Dr Prentice. How trying it must be for you. I wish there was something I could do to cheer you up.
Well, if it gives you any pleasure, my dear, you can test my new, contraceptive device.
I'd be delighted to help you. In any way I can, Doctor.
Put your hands behind your head, lie on the couch, and think of the closing chapters of your favorite work of fiction. You may leave the rest to me.
Who are you talking to?
I must ask you not to enter my consulting room without warning. You're interrupting my studies.
There's nobody here. Were you talking to yourself?
I was dictating a message to Matron. She's worried by inability to control her bladder.
Can urine be controlled by thinking of Tess of the d'Urbervilles?
My theory is still at the planning stage. I'd rather not discuss it. Why have you returned? You know I can't endure the torment of being in your company.
I arrived at my meeting to find the hall in an uproar. Helen Duncannon had declared herself to be in love with a man, and as you know, the club is primarily for lesbians. I myself am exempt from the rule because you count as a woman. We expelled Helen, and I spent the night at the station hotel.
If you would care to check your baggage, madam, I'd like to return to my duties.
Cast your eye across my luggage, would you? Half of it has already been stolen by the hotel staff. It's so difficult being a woman.
I'm sure you're the best judge of that.
I'm not asking for my handbag back or for the money you've stolen, but unless my dress and wig are returned, I shall file a complaint with your employers. You have until lunchtime.
I've already sold the dress for a lump sum. I could get it back at a price. I've also found someone to take an option on the photographs.
What photographs?
I had a camera concealed in the room.
When I gave myself to you, the contract didn't include cinematic rights.
I'd like £100 for the negatives. You've got until lunchtime.
I shall complain to the manager.
Do you no good? He took the photographs.
Oh, this is scandalous. I'm a married woman.
You didn't behave like a married woman last night.
I was upset. A lesbian friend of mine had just announced her engagement to a member of Parliament.
You should be more careful in your choice of friends. I'd like to get out of the indecent photograph racket. It's so wearing on the nerves. Could you find me a worthwhile job? I've had a hard boyhood.
What kind of job do you want?
I'm an expert typist. I'd like £100 for the photographs and the post of secretary to your husband.
You put me in an impossible position.
No position's impossible when you're young and healthy.
She'll be sodden before long.
Have you a family, sir?
No, my wife said that breastfeeding would spoil her shape, though from what I remember, it would have been improved by a little nibbling. She's an example of inbreeding among the lobelia-growing classes. A failure in eugenics combined with a taste of alcohol and sexual intercourse makes it most undesirable for her to become a mother.
I hardly ever have sexual intercourse.
You'll bore me your legs apart. They'll send you to the grave in a Y-shaped coffin.
My trouble stems from your inadequacy as a lover. It's embarrassing. You must have learnt your technique from a Christmas cracker. Rejuvenation pills have no effect on
I
you.
never take pills.
You take them all the time during our lovemaking. The deafening sound of your chewing is the reason for my never having an orgasm.
How dare you say that? Your book on the climax in the female is largely autobiographical, or have you been masquerading as a sexually responsive woman?
My vaginal spasms have been bogus for some time.
What a discovery. Married to a mistress of the fraudulent climax.
My parents were divorced, sir. I miss the warmth of a happy family atmosphere.
As a psychiatrist, I do all I can to bring estranged couples together. Do not hesitate to call on me if you're mentally disturbed. It's no good lying there, Miss Barkley. My wife was returned.
Oh,
Oh, good. She'll be able to help with your
The
examination.
examination is cancelled till further notice. Get dressed.
Has your new secretary arrived?
I've got her particulars somewhere.
Have you ever given thought to a male secretary?
A man could never get used to the work.
My father had a male secretary. My mother said he was much better than a woman.
No, I couldn't ask a young man to do overtime and palm him off with a lipstick and a bottle of Yardley's. There'd be silk suits and Alfa Romeos if I as much as breathed on him.
Try a boy for a change, or a rich man. You can afford the luxuries of life.
What about Miss Barclay? I've already given her a preliminary interview.
You must explain the altered circumstances. What are you doing with that dress?
It's an old one of yours.
Have you taken up transvestism? I'd no idea our marriage teetered on the edge of fashion.
Our marriage is like the peace of God. It passeth all understanding.
Give me the dress. I shall wear it.
Oh, can I have the one that you're wearing in exchange?
I'm not wearing a dress.
Why aren't you wearing a dress? Are you following some extreme fashion?
I'm going to speak frankly and with complete candor. Please listen carefully and save your comments for later. My room at the hotel was small, airless and uncomfortable, a model of its kind. As I was dressing for dinner, I noticed that the sheets on the bed were none too clean. I went to the linen cupboard, which I knew to be on the second floor, hoping to find a chambermaid. Instead, I found a page boy who enticed me into the cupboard and then made an indecent suggestion. When I repulsed him, he attempted to rape me. I fought him off, but not before he'd stolen my handbag and several articles of clothing.
Doesn't sound the kind of behaviour one expects at a four-star hotel.
The boy has promised to return my dress. He sold it to a friend who probably intends using it at sex orgies.
Realise what would happen if your adventures became public. I'd be ruined. The doors of London society would be slammed in my face. Did you inform the authorities of this escapade?
No.
Why not?
I saw in his youth the remnants of a natural goodness that had all but been destroyed by the pressures of society. I promised to find him employment.
Is there a market for illegal entry?
I don't propose to lead him into a dead-end job.
What other qualifications has he?
He can type.
Oh, there's not much work for male typists.
No, he's been disappointed by his failure in commerce. That's why he took to rape.
Well, how do you hope to employ him?
As your secretary. He'll be back in an hour. You can check his credentials at your leisure. Where is Miss Barclay?
She's upstairs.
I shall inform her that the situation is no longer vacant.
Do you think I could borrow one of your dresses for a while, my dear?
I find your sudden craving for women's clothing a dull and, on the whole, a rather distasteful subject.
Oh, she'll bring my grey hairs in sorrow to the grave. Miss Barclay, the present situation is fraught with danger. My wife is under the impression that your dress belongs to her.
You must explain as tactfully as possible that she has made a mistake.
No, that isn't possible. You'll have to be patient for a little longer.
Doctor, I'm naked. You do realise that, don't you?
Indeed I do, Miss Barclay. It must cause you acute embarrassment. I'll set about finding you suitable clothing.
Good morning. Are you Dr. Prentice?
Yes. Have you an appointment?
No, I never make appointments. I'd like to be given details of your clinic. It's run, I understand, with the full knowledge and cooperation of the local hospital authorities. You specialize in the complete breakdown and its byproducts.
Yes, but it's highly confidential. My files are never open to strangers.
You may speak freely in front of me. I represent Her Majesty's government, your immediate superiors in madness. I'm from the commissioners.
Which branch?
The mental branch.
Do you cover asylums proper or just houses of tentative madness?
My brief is infinite. I'd have sway over a rabbit hutch if the inmates were mentally disturbed.
Well, obviously you're a force to be reckoned with.
I hope our relationship will be a pleasant one. Is this your consulting room?
Yes.
Why are there so many doors? Was the house designed by a lunatic?
Yes, we have him here as a patient from time to time.
The skylight, too. Is it functional?
It's perfectly useless for anything, except to let light in.
Is your couch regulation size? It looks big enough for two.
I do double consultations. Toddlers are often terrified of doctors. I've taken to examining their mothers at the same time.
Has the theory received much publicity?
I don't approve of scientists who publicize their theories.
I must say I agree with you. I wish that more scientists would keep their ideas to themselves. Is this something to do with you, Prentice?
It's a prescription, sir.
Keep your head down and don't make a sound. You find that your patients react favorably to such treatment?
I can claim to have had some success with it, sir.
Your ideas, I think, are in advance of the times. There's a naked woman behind there.
She's a patient, sir. I just managed to calm her down when you arrived.
You were attacked by a naked woman?
Yes.
Well, Prentice, I don't know whether to applaud your daring or envy you your luck. Let's take a glance at her.
Miss Barclay, a gentleman wishes to speak to you.
I can't meet anyone without my clothes on, Doctor.
Notice the obstinacy with which she clings to a suburban upbringing.
Have you tried shock treatment?
No.
How long has she been a patient?
The committal order hasn't yet been signed.
Bring it here, I'll sign it. Why did you take your clothes off? Did it never occur to you that your psychiatrist might be embarrassed by your behavior?
I'm not a patient. I'm from the Friendly Faces Employment Bureau.
When did these delusions first manifest themselves?
I've been aware of them for some time, sir.
Do you imagine that any businessman would tolerate a naked typist in his office?
Dr Prentice asked me to undress in order that he might discover my fitness for the tasks ahead. There was no suggestion of my working permanently without clothing.
I shall take charge of this case. It appears to have the bizarre quality that makes for a fascinating thesis. Make the necessary entry in your register and alert the dispensary of my requirements. Is there a history of mental illness in your family?
I find your questions irrelevant. I refuse to answer them.
I've just certified you insane. You know that, don't you?
What right have you to take such high-handed action?
You're right, you had a nervous breakdown.
I'm quite sane.
Oh, pull yourself together. Why have you been certified if you're sane? Even for a mad woman, you're unusually dense. Here, put this on.
Oh, thank you. It's a great relief to be clothed again.
What is the background to this case? Has the patient any family?
No, sir. Her stepmother died recently after a remarkably intimate involvement with Sir Winston Churchill.
What of the father?
He appears to be an unpleasant fellow. He made her mother pregnant at her place of employment.
Was there any reason for such conduct?
The patient is reticent on the subject.
I find that strange and very revealing. Go and prepare a sedative. Lie on this trolley.
Please ring for a taxi, sir. I wish to return home. I haven't the qualities required for this job.
You're slowing down your recovery rate, Miss Barclay.
Tell him the truth, Doctor. I'm a fully qualified shorthand typist. Oh, this is intolerable. You're a disgrace to your profession. I shall ring the BMA after lunch.
Accept your condition without tears and without abusing those placed in authority.
Miss Barclay is nowhere to be found.
She's under strong sedation and on no account to be disturbed.
My wife is talking of my secretary, sir. She's been missing for some time.
I'm Geraldine Barclay, looking for part-time secretarial work. I've been certified insane.
Ignore these random reflections. They're an essential factor in the patient's condition. Does she have the same name as your secretary?
She's taken my secretary's name as a nom de folie, although morally reprehensible. There's little we can do about it legally, I'm afraid.
Seems a trifle capricious, but the insane are famous for their wild ways.
I shall contact the employment agency. Miss Barclay can't have vanished into thin air.
My wife is unfamiliar with the habits of young women, sir. I've known many who could vanish into thin air, and some who took a delight in doing so.
In my experience, young women vanish only at midnight and after a heavy meal. Were your relations with your secretary normal?
Yes.
Well, Prentice, your private life is your own affair. I find it shocking nonetheless. Did the patient know of your liaison with Miss Barclay?
She may have done.
I see. A definite pattern is beginning to emerge. Under the influence of the drug that I've administered, Miss Barclay, you are relaxed and unafraid. I am going to ask you some questions which I want answered in a clear, non-technical style. She'll take that as an invitation to use bad language. Who was the first man in your life?
My father.
Did he assault you?
No.
She may mean yes when she says no. It's elementary feminine psychology. Did your stepmother know of your love for your father?
I live in a normal family. I had no love for my father.
I'd take a bet that she was a victim of an incestuous attack. She clearly associates violence and the sexual act. Her attempt when naked to provoke you to erotic response may have a deeper significance. Did your father have any religious belief?
I'm sure he did.
Yet she claims to have lived in a normal family. Did your father's church sanction rape? Some sects will turn a blind eye to anything as long as it's kept within the family circle. Was there a church service before you were assaulted?
I can't answer these questions, sir. They seem pointless and disgusting.
I am interested in rape, Miss Barclay, not the aesthetics of cross-examination. Answer me, please. Were you molested by your father?
No!
The vehemence of her denials is proof positive of guilt. It's a textbook case. A man beyond innocence, a girl aching for experience. The beauty, confusion, and urgency of their passion driving them on, they embark upon a reckless love affair. He finds it difficult to reconcile his guilty secret with his spiritual beliefs. Sexual activity ceases. She, who basked in his love, feels anxiety at its loss. She seeks advice from her priest. The church, true to her ancient traditions, counsels chastity. The result? Madness.
A fascinating theory, sir, and cleverly put together. Does it tie in with known facts?
That need not cause us undue anxiety. Civilizations have been founded and maintained upon theories which refuse to obey facts. As far as I'm concerned, this child was unnaturally assaulted by her own father. I shall base all my future actions upon that assumption.
Am I mad, Doctor?
No.
Are you mad?
No.
Is it the candid camera?
There's a perfectly rational explanation for what is taking place. Keep calm. All will be well.
It is also plain to the merest amateur apprentice that you resemble the patient's father. That is why she undressed herself. When I arrived on the scene, she was about to reenact that initial experience with her parent. The vexed question of motive is now clear. She was aware of the understanding that exists between you and your secretary. You represent her father. Her identification with Miss Barclay completes the picture.
Maybe there's a simpler explanation for the apparent complexities of the case, sir.
Simple explanations are for simple minds. I've no use for either. Stand aside. I shall supervise the cutting of the patient's hair.
What's the matter? Are you in pain?
Yes, could you get me a glass of water?
Put them back at once. Should I call a doctor?
No, I'll be all right.
Here, drink this.
I wonder if you'd get me another glass. That one is quite the wrong shape.
The wrong shape?
Yes.
What are you doing now?
Praying.
This puerile behaviour ill accords with your high academic reputation. The youth I wish you to engage as your secretary has arrived.
Well, I wonder if you'd ask him to call back later. I'm still feeling dicky.
I'll see what he says. He's an impatient young man.
Is that why he took to rape?
Yes, he can't wait for anything.
2 decades spent fighting her and a receding hairline. I've just about had enough of both.
You'll have no trouble recognizing the patient, Prentice. I've clipped her hair to within an inch of the scalp.
Was that why, sir? I mean, is it in accord with the present enlightened approach to the mentally sick?
Perfectly in accord. I've published a monograph on the subject. I wrote it at university on the advice of my tutor. A very remarkable man. Having failed to achieve madness himself, he took to teaching it to others.
Were you his prize pupil?
Oh, there were some more able than I.
Where are they now?
In mental institutions.
Running them?
For the most part.
He insists upon punctuality. He'll give you 5 minutes.
A prospective employer, sir. It's useless to claim that socialism has had no effect.
Is there no news of Miss Barclay?
None. I checked with the Employment Bureau. Their clients have strict instructions to ring them immediately after an interview. Miss Barclay has failed to do so.
A search party must be organized. What have you in the way of
A
dogs?
spaniel and a miniature poodle.
Let them be unleashed. Miss Barclay must be found, or the authorities informed.
I shall contact the warden. He has charge of the gate and will know whether she left the building.
No, don't do that. Miss Barclay is quite safe. She's downstairs. I've just remembered.
Why did you keep the fact from us?
It may have slipped my memory.
Have you suffered from lapses of memory before?
I can't remember.
Your memory plays you false even on the subject of its own inadequacy.
I may have had a blackout. I don't recall having one on any other
You
occasion.
might have forgotten. You admit your memory isn't reliable.
I can only state what I know, sir. I can't be expected to remember things that I've forgotten.
What is Miss Barclay doing downstairs?
She's making white gollywogs for sailing colour prejudice trouble spots.
You claim, Prentice, that you forgot your secretary was manufacturing these monstrosities?
Yes.
I can hardly credit it. Once seen, a white gollywog is not easily forgotten. What was the object in creating these nightmare creatures?
I was hoping to promote racial harmony.
These hellish white homuncules must be put out of their misery. I order you to destroy them before their baleful influence can make itself felt.
I'll ask Miss Barclay to carry out your orders, sir.
The man's a second Frankenstein.
My husband is a strange person, Doctor. Is he a genius or merely a highly strung fool?
I'd like to know him better before I venture an opinion. Have there been other schemes besides this gollywog scandal?
His letters to the newspapers are legion. From his first letter, written at the age of 12, complaining of inaccurate information given to him by a German child whilst they were playing mothers and fathers. He speculates on the nature and extent of Nazi propaganda. To his latest letter, published a month ago, where he calls gentlemen's lavatories the last stronghold of male privilege.
Your husband's behavior gives me cause for grave disquiet. Are you yourself convinced that his methods can result in a lessening of tension between the sane and the insane?
The purpose of my husband's clinic is not to cure, but to liberate and exploit madness.
And this he appears to succeed only too well. Never have I seen matters conducted as they are in this house. Read that.
Keep your head down and don't make a sound. What does it mean?
Your husband is using dangerously unorthodox methods in his treatment of the insane.
I hesitate to mention this, Doctor. I have a wife, my loyalties are involved. But I must confess that only this morning, my husband announced his intention of using Thomas Hardy to cure a disorder of the bladder. What a thing to find in a bookcase.
Is it yours?
No.
Let me see it. I want you to be honest with me, Mrs. Prentice. Has Dr. Prentice at any time given you cause to doubt his own sanity?
He's a respected member of his profession. His work in all fields has been praised by numerous colleagues.
Radical thought comes easily to the lunatic.
You're quite right. I've known for some time that all was not well. I tried to convince myself my fears were groundless. All the time I knew I was cheating myself.
What first aroused your suspicions?
Oh, I think his boorish attitude towards my mother. He used to ring her up and suggest painful ways of committing suicide. Worn out at last by his pestering, she took his advice.
And more recently, say from this morning, has there been a deterioration in his condition?
Oh, yes, quite definitely, Doctor. He showed no sympathy for me when I complained of being assaulted by a page boy at the station hotel.
What was the object of the assault?
The youth wanted to rape me.
He didn't succeed?
No.
The service in these hotels is dreadful.
Shortly after my return, my husband started having the most extraordinary ideas, which I'd have been willing to indulge if they hadn't overstepped the bounds of good taste.
Give me an example.
He has developed a craving for women's clothes.
This confirms your story.
I refused to loan him any of mine and went in search of Miss Barclay. Sometime later, in my presence, my husband had a kind of fit. He asked me to get him a drink. When I got back, he presented me with a bouquet of flowers.
He wished to congratulate you on your safe return.
I'd only been to the dispensary, and he'd taken the flowers from that vase. I was angry and not a little frightened. At this point, a spasm of agony crossed his otherwise tranquil features. I offered him a glass of water. He reacted in a violent manner. He said the glass was the wrong shape.
What a revealing phrase.
I returned to the dispensary. When I got back, he was on his knees praying.
Oh, how shocking. His abnormal condition has driven him to seek refuge in religion. Always the last-ditch stand of a man on the brink of disaster. I can't doubt that what you've told me has great significance. We must also take into account the admitted lapses of memory and the attempts to create alien forms of life. Say nothing of our suspicions. Fancies grow like weeds in the unhealthy soil of the sick brain.
Oh, Doctor, you've no idea what a relief it's been to talk to someone like yourself.
Why have you not done so before?
A woman doesn't like facing the fact that the man she loves is insane. It makes her look sort of fool.
Have you carried out my instructions?
Yes.
You guilty scientists will destroy the world with your shameful secrets. Does this belong to your secretary?
No, it's mine.
You are in the habit of wearing women's footwear?
My private life is my own. Society must not be too harsh in its judgments.
Where is this secretary of yours? There are one or two questions I'd like to put to her.
I can't allow you to disturb her. She has work to do.
I don't think you quite appreciate the position, Prentice. The powers vested in me by the commissioners give me the right to interview any member of your staff should occasion demand. Where is Geraldine Barclay?
She's in the garden.
Ask her to step this way.
She's making a funeral pyre for the gollywogs. It would be wrong to disturb her.
Very well. I shall seek her out myself. You may be sure, Prentice, that your conduct will not go unreported.
What have you told him?
Nothing but the truth.
You've been spreading it around that I'm a transvestite, haven't you?
There was a woman's shoe hidden in the bookcase. What was it doing there?
Why were you rooting in my books?
I was looking for the cuttings album. I showed it to Dr Rance.
You have no right to do that.
Are you ashamed of the fact that you write to strange men?
There is nothing furtive in my relationship with the editor of The Guardian.
Dr Rance and I are trying to help you. We're not satisfied with your condition.
Neither am I. It's impossible, and you're to blame. I should have driven you out with ignominy years ago.
Whose fault is it if our marriage is on the rocks? You're selfish and inconsiderate. Don't push me too far. I might sleep with somebody else.
Who?
An Indian student.
You don't know any.
New Delhi is full of them.
You can't take lovers in Asia. The airfare would be crippling. Your irresponsible behaviour causes me untold anxiety. A man exposed himself to you last summer.
Didn't see anything.
And your disappointment marred our holiday.
You've no psychological understanding of the difficulties I face.
Unless you're very careful, you'll find yourself in a suitcase awaiting collection.
These veiled threats only confirm the doubts I already have of your sanity.
If you hand over the money, madam, I'll let you have the photos. However, some guarantee of employment must be given before I part with the negatives.
What's he talking about?
He has in his possession a series of pornographic studies of me. He took them last night without my knowledge.
The damnable frivolity of the woman. I shall have to turn pederast to get her out of this mess.
Oh, I have to deliver this. It's from our 2-hour cleaning service.
My dress and wig!
A dress! I'll take possession of that.
I shall inform Dr Rance of your theft of one of my dresses.
Don't raise your voice. Take a biscuit from the barrel and retire to your room.
Sorry if my behaviour last night caused your wife some anxiety, sir. But I have a burning desire to sleep with every woman I meet.
It's a filthy habit. In my opinion, very injurious to the health.
It is, sir. My health's never been the same since I went off stamp collecting.
We have an overall moral policy in this clinic from which even I am not exempt. Whilst you're with us, I shall expect you to show an interest in no one's sexual organs but your own.
I miss a lot of fun that way.
That is the whole object of the exercise.
I can find no trace of your secretary. I might add, Prentice, that my patience is all but exhausted.
She might be in the dispensary.
Unless I discover her whereabouts in the next few minutes, you'll find yourself in serious trouble.
A policeman is at the door. He wishes to speak to some member of the household.
Ask him to step this way.
Sir, they've come to arrest me.
This paranoia is uncalled for. The officers probably called to ask for the hand of my cook in marriage.
Wrong, sir. They'll give me 5 years if I'm caught.
Why are you in danger of arrest? You can be quite frank with me.
Well, sir, as your wife's already told you, last night I attempted to misbehave myself with her. I didn't succeed.
I'm sure you didn't. Despite all appearances to the contrary, Mrs Prentice is harder to get into than the reading room at the British Museum.
Undeterred, I took the lift to the 3rd floor of the hotel where a party of schoolgirls were staying. Sir, what lonely and aimless lives they lead.
Was there no mistress in attendance?
She occupied a room across the corridor.
Did you disturb her?
No, and she'll never forgive me for it. It was she that reported the incident to the police. Oh, sir, don't turn me over to the law.
I warn you, Prentice, unless you're prepared to cooperate in finding Miss Barclay, I shall call upon you to account for her disappearance. If you're unable to do so, the police must be informed.
Have you given thought to my predicament?
No, I'm obsessed by my own. We'll be sharing the same cell at this rate. No. Take your clothes off.
Are you going to mess me about, sir?
Certainly not. Is that what usually happens when men ask you to take your clothes off?
Yes, they give me £1/4.
£1/4? Oh, good gracious, the rate hasn't changed in 30 years. What can the unions be thinking of? Oh, come on, strip. Oh, you're remarkable. My last secretary couldn't better you. And she was a descendant of Houdini. No, remove your jaws. My medical training has familiarised me with what is underneath.
What devilry are you up to now?
I'm carrying out a medical examination.
You're not a physician. Why do you need the child undressed?
My investigations upon his clothed body will be strictly unscientific and inevitably superficial. In order to assure myself that he's going to be of any use to me, I must examine him fully and skin-wise.
You ogre. Never in my whole life have I heard anything so lame and stupid. This folly will get you struck off the register. Come with me, dear. You mustn't be left with this man.
What do we do now, sir? If the law comes, I can't even run for it.
I've an idea. I want you to impersonate my secretary. Her name is Geraldine Barclay. It will solve all our problems if you agree to my request. It is of particular importance to convince Dr. Rance that you are a woman. You should encounter no real difficulties there. He's an elderly man. I don't suppose he's checked with the original recently. After the meeting, plead illness, leave the house, and I'll be waiting with your own clothes. The operation completed, you'll be given a sum of money and a ticket to any destination you choose. If you run into any trouble, I shall deny all knowledge of you. Dress in there. Officer, kindly step this way. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting.
Shoes, sir. Shoes. One moment.
Would you mind not entering my consulting room without permission?
You asked me to come in, sir.
I don't believe I did. Wait outside.
Why do you keep giving me flowers?
I'm very fond of your idea.
Your actions grow wilder with every passing moment. Why were you rude to the policeman?
He barged in without as much as by your leave.
You asked him to come in. Had you forgotten?
No, my memory isn't what it was. Tell him I'll see him now. Oh, Miss Barclay, what are you doing here?
Nothing would induce me to remain on your staff a moment longer, Doctor. I wish to give notice.
Sorry about the misunderstanding, sir.
Oh, please remain outside. I think I made myself plain.
You don't want to see me?
No. Your disclosures could ruin me. Give me a chance to get us out of this mess.
You must put matters right by telling the truth.
Hide behind there. Nothing unpleasant will happen to you. I give you my word as a gentleman.
We must tell the truth.
That is a thoroughly defeatist attitude.
At least give me back my clothes. I feel naked without them.
Oh, if he presents me with those flowers again, I shall faint. He's cut the stalks off. His lunacy is beyond belief.
Excuse my wife, Sister Sergeant. She was molested by a young man last night, and her recovery is far from complete.
I understand Mrs. Prentice introduced the young man to you, sir.
Yes, we shan't prefer charges.
I believe your wife to be ill-advised in not repeating her experiences before a judge and jury. However, as it happens, I'm not concerned with this case. I'm interested in the youth movements between midnight and 7 a.m. During that period, he is alleged to have misconducted himself with a party of school children.
How violent disgrace.
After carrying out a medical examination, our lady doctor is up in arms. She can't wait to meet this fellow face to face.
Well, he isn't on the premises. If he turns up, you will be informed.
How dare you give misleading information to the police? He was here. I have his clothes outside.
Very wise of you to confiscate his clothing, ma'am. If more women did the same, the number of cases of rape would be halved.
Or doubled.
Disregard anything my husband says. I'll fetch the clothing.
I'm also anxious, sir, to trace the whereabouts of a young woman called Barclay. Can you help in my inquiries?
Why do you want to see Miss Barclay?
It's a matter of national importance. Miss Barclay's stepmother, a woman of otherwise unblemished character, died recently. Shortly before her death, her name had been linked in a most unpleasant way with that of Sir Winston Churchill. Mrs. Barclay's association with the great man gave offence in some circles. However, the local council, composed by and large of no-nonsense men and women, decided in view of his war record to overlook Sir Winston's moral lapse. Under expert guidance, he was to be reintegrated into society. The task accomplished, it became clear the great man was incomplete. When the true facts got out, the diehards were in uproar. The press took up the story, and it snowballed out of all proportion. At last, with the full support of the Conservative and Unionist Party, the council decided to sue the heirs of Mrs. Barclay for those parts of Sir Winston that an army-type medical had proved to be missing. Council lawyers obtained an exhumation order. This morning, Mrs. Barclay's coffin was opened in the presence of the Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress. Fainting women were held back as the official in charge searched high and low for council property. His efforts were not crowned with success. Mrs. Barclay had taken nothing with her to the grave except those things which she ought to have done. At noon today, the matter came to the attention of the police.
And you suspect my secretary of having stolen certain parts of Sir Winston Churchill?
Here is proof the young man was in this room.
Can't get far without clothing.
His progress without clothing last night was enviable.
You still claim, sir, you have no knowledge of the youth's whereabouts?
Nope.
And what has become of Miss Barclay?
No idea.
You told Dr Rance she was burning the gollywogs. Was that a lie?
May have been, I can't remember.
You must talk to Dr Rance, Sergeant. He may be able to account for my husband's unusual behaviour pattern.
Where would the doctor be?
In the garden. Please tell him his specialised knowledge is urgently required. Now, darling, you've clearly lost the capacity to remember fresh items of information, to solve unaccustomed problems, and to remain orientated. Don't let this worry you. I shall remain at your side throughout the whole course of your illness. I'm even going to take notes on the progress of your breakdown, so nothing will be wasted. Try to remember why you damaged the flowers in this vase. It may have a direct bearing on the case.
Tell the truth, sir. All your troubles spring from a lack of candour.
My troubles spring from a misguided attempt to seduce you.
You never told me you were seducing me. You said you were interested in my mind.
Oh, that's like open sesame. It's a formula for gaining entrance.
Are you sure Dr Rance is out here, sir?
Yes.
Where would he be, then?
In the shrubbery. We have a naked elf on a bird bath. We often have trouble with peeping toms.
I'd like you to accompany me, sir.
Are you Geraldine Barclay?
Yes.
Where have you been?
I've been attending to the 1,001 duties that occupy the average secretary during her working hours.
It doesn't take the whole morning to file your nails, surely.
I was sick. I had to lie down.
Are you pregnant?
I can't discuss my employer's business with you.
What was your last job?
I was a hostess at the 123 Club.
It's obvious you're quite unsuited to the work here. This is my husband's secretary, Sergeant. She'll be pleased to help with your inquiries.
Miss Barclay, I must ask you to produce, or cause to be produced, the missing parts of Sir Winston Churchill.
What do they look like?
You're claiming ignorance of the shape and structure of the objects sought.
I'm in the dark.
You handle them only at night. We shall draw our own conclusions.
I am not the kind of girl to be mixed up in that sort of thing. I'm an ex-member of the Brownies.
Are you concealing unlawful property about your person?
No.
I'll have to call medical evidence to prove your story, miss. You must be thoroughly looked into.
I'm a qualified doctor.
Only women are permitted to examine female suspects.
But doesn't that breed discontent in the force?
Amongst the single men, there's a certain amount of bitterness. Married men who are familiar with the country are glad to be let off extra map reading.
I'll examine Miss Barclay. That will solve the problem.
Thank you. I accept your kind offer. Take the young lady into the dispensary and get her to submit to a medical examination.
Prentice, the patient has escaped. Sound the alarm.
How long has the patient been gone, sir?
Only a few minutes.
Any steps you feel may be necessary to recover your patient may be taken, sir. She must have come through this room. You and I were in the garden. Mrs Prentice was in the hall. Escape would be impossible. She must still be in this room. Only one hiding place is possible. Are you from the station hotel?
Yes.
I want a word with you, my lad.
You've no idea how glad I am to be arrested.
Why?
I'm in great danger.
Who from?
Dr Prentice. His conduct is scandalous. Take me to the police station. I shall prefer charges.
Have you anything to say, sir?
Yes. What this young woman claims is a tissue of lies.
This is a boy, sir, not a girl. If you're baffled by the difference, it might be as well to approach both with caution. Let's see what you've got to say for yourself.
I came here for a job. On some pretext, the doctor got me to remove my clothes. Afterwards, he behaved in a strange manner.
What did he do?
He asked me to lie on that couch.
Did he at any time attempt to interfere with you?
You'll be disappointed, Sergeant, if you imagine that young man has lost his virginity.
I hope he'll be considerably more experienced before he loses that, sir. What reason are due for taking off his clothes?
I wish to assure myself of his unquestioning obedience. I give a prize each year. I hope, ultimately, to tie it in with the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme.
I prefer not to have royalty mentioned in this context, sir. Have you been in trouble of this kind before?
I am not in trouble.
You must realise the boy is bringing a serious charge against you.
It's ridiculous. I'm a married man.
Marriage excuses no one, the freaks roll.
I'm a respected member of my profession. Your accusation is absurd.
It's not for me to bring accusations in a matter I don't fully understand.
The boy has an unsavoury reputation. Last night requires explaining before this morning.
I had nothing to do with the disgraceful happening at the station hotel.
You deny that on the night of Thursday last you did behave in an obscene manner with a section of the Priory Road School for Girls?
Yes.
Nicholas Beckett, I warn you that anything you say will be taken down and may be used as evidence against you.
My name isn't Nicholas Beckett.
Then why do you suppose I wish to arrest you?
To safeguard my interests?
You imagine that you'll be free from acts of indecency in a police station?
Of course.
Oh, I wish I shared your optimism.
Full security arrangements are now in force. No one is to enter or leave the clinic without written permission. Prentice, get your secretary to issue warrants to every member of the staff.
I'll do that, sir, as soon as she's ready to resume her duties.
Well, would you help us to clear up a spot of bother, Doctor? It's a matter of some urgency. Last night, this youth assaulted a number of children. This morning, he was assaulted in his turn.
Well, what can I say? It's an extreme case and be done by as you did.
The boy has made a serious charge against Dr. Prentice. He claims he was forced to strip and lie on a couch.
A complete list of your indiscretions would make a bestseller.
It's all been a dreadful mistake, sir.
Now, Prentice, at this moment, there is only one thing to advise. Absolute frankness. Have you behaved in an unseemly manner?
No.
The doctor said he wanted to put the boy in some kind of club.
It's no good trying to do that. Boys cannot be put in the club. That's half their charm.
I'm sorry if my statement misled the sergeant, but my nerves are on edge.
You should consult a qualified psychiatrist.
I'm a qualified psychiatrist.
You're a fool. That isn't quite the same thing. Has the boy come to your notice before?
Not on a case of this kind. That's why we have to be careful. As the doctor rightly says, he has an unsavoury reputation. It may be that he bears Dr. Prentice a grudge.
Perhaps the accusation springs from disappointment. It might have been wiser had you not rejected the young fellow's blandishments.
Unnatural vice can ruin a man.
Ruin follows the accusation, not the vice. If you committed the act, you might now be facing the
I
charge.
couldn't commit the act. I am a heterosexual.
I wish you wouldn't use these Chaucerian words. It's most confusing. How do you propose to get to the bottom of this affair?
A reputable person must examine the lad.
I refuse to be examined.
You can't refuse, you're under arrest.
I'm not Nicholas Beckett. I want to be taken to prison.
If you're not Nicholas Beckett, you can't be taken to prison. You're not under arrest.
I am Nicholas Beckett.
Then you're under arrest and you will submit to a medical examination.
And I shall conduct it. The mind of the victim of this kind of assault has to be considered equally with the body.
I haven't been assaulted.
Well, then why make such a foul accusation?
I didn't accuse anyone. The sergeant made the accusation.
Has Dr. Prentice assaulted you too? Is it policemen or young boys that you're after? At your age, it's high time you came to a decision. Wait outside. I shall examine this boy and make my report. Afterwards, I'll take a look at you.
And me?
Yes, we can't be too careful.
Isn't that a bit unusual, sir?
You're in a madhouse. Unusual behaviour is the order of the day.
Only for patients.
We've no privileged class here. It's democratic lunacy we practice. Take your clothes off, Sonny. Lie on the couch.
What are we to do now? I can't undress. He'd spot the deception at once.
Keep calm. The situation, though desperate, is by no means lost.
I shouldn't have behaved as I did, sir. I wasn't harmed.
You enjoyed the experience? Would you enjoy normal intercourse?
No, I might get pregnant. Or be the cause of pregnancy in others.
He's just given away a vital piece of information. Do you think of yourself as a girl?
No.
Why not?
I'm a boy.
Do you have the evidence about you?
I must be a boy. I like girls.
I don't quite follow the reasoning there.
Many men imagine that a preference for women is ipso facto a proof of virility.
Someone should really write a book on these folk myths. Take your trousers down. I'll tell you which sex you belong to.
I'd rather not know.
You wish to remain in ignorance?
Yes.
I can't encourage you in such a self-indulgent attitude. You must face facts like the rest of us.
You're forcing the boy to undergo a repetition of a traumatic experience. He might go insane.
Well, he's in a mental home. He couldn't choose a more appropriate place. Undress. My time is valuable.
I can't go on, Doctor. I must tell the truth. I'm not a boy. I'm a girl.
Excellent. A confession at last. He wishes to believe he's a girl in order to minimize the feelings of guilt following homosexual intercourse.
I pretended to be a boy. I did it to help Dr. Prentice.
How does it help a man if a girl pretends to be a boy?
Wives are angry if they find their husbands have undressed and seduced a girl.
But boys are fair game? I doubt if your very personal view of society would go unchallenged.
Undress me then, Doctor. Do whatever you like, only prove that I'm a girl.
If he's going to carry on like this, he's going to have to be strapped down.
Would you take a look at Miss Barclay, Doctor? She refuses to undress in front of a woman.
How about in front of a man?
I haven't sounded her on the subject.
Perhaps I might tempt her. I'll give it a try. She may be a nymphomaniac. If this lad becomes foul-mouthed, keep him on the boil till I return.
I'll go through the garden, Doctor. I can get a taxi home.
That isn't possible. Strict security precautions are in operation until the patient is recaptured.
When she is recaptured, can I go?
No.
Why not?
Because you're the patient.
Oh.
Your secretary is standing on a table fighting off any attempt to undress her. She seems incapable of conducting herself in a proper manner.
She's never given me any cause for complaint, sir.
Well, you expect a secretary to misbehave herself. It's a condition of employment. Do you realize the woman uses a razor?
I find nothing remarkable in that. Mrs. Prentice has occasion sometimes to remove unwanted hair.
From her chin? There are two sexes. The unpalatable truth must be faced. Your attempts at a merger can end only in heartbreak.
Miss Barclay's calmer now, Doctor. I've given her a sedative.
What an absorbing picture of the mind in decay.
Oh, Miss Barclay's no more ill than I am.
Your condition's worse than hers.
I can't accept that.
No madman ever accepts madness. Only the sane do that. Were you present when Dr. Prentice used this youth unnaturally?
What is unnatural?
How disturbing the questions of the mad can be. Suppose I made an indecent suggestion to you. If you agreed, something might take place which, by and large, would be regarded as natural. If, on the other hand, I approached this child, my actions could result only in a gross violation of the order of things.
Has my husband misbehaved with that boy?
It's impossible to tell with any degree of accuracy. He refuses to cooperate with a medical examination.
What happened to the other boy?
Which boy?
The one you undressed?
This is the boy he undressed.
No, he undressed the boy who made a nuisance of himself to me.
Isn't this the same one?
No.
There's another boy?
He was being interviewed for a secretarial post. My husband made him undress.
How long have you been a pervert?
I'm not a pervert.
How would you describe a man who mauls young boys, importunes policemen, and lives on terms of intimacy with a woman who shaves twice a day?
I'd say the man was a pervert.
I'm glad you're beginning to face the realities of the situation. Who are you if you are not Nicholas Beckett?
His name is Gerald Barclay.
Is he this young woman's brother?
No.
What has happened then to Nicholas Beckett?
He left an hour ago to resume his duties at the station hotel.
He couldn't have done. I took his uniform. He'd been naked.
What one hears at the station hotel, the uniform is optional.
I hope we haven't lost another one. We'll be alone with our miracle drugs if many more go. Find out if the boys return to the hotel. Prepare the necessary papers. I'm certifying these two.
Can't you do something about him, sir? He's off his head.
I am a representative of order, you of chaos. Unless that fact is faced, I cannot hope to cure you. Make out the committal orders for me to sign.
I can't agree to such drastic action. We have no evidence of insanity.
I am relieving you of your post as head of this clinic. From now on, you will do as I say.
I resent your handling this affair, sir. I shall make my views known to the commissioners.
I doubt whether the views of a madman would carry very much weight with the commissioner.
I'm not mad. He only looks that way.
Your actions today would get the Archbishop of Canterbury declared non-compass.
I'm not the Archbishop of Canterbury.
No, that will come at a later stage.
Your interpretation of my behaviour is misplaced and erroneous. If anyone borders on lunacy, it's you, yourself.
Bearing in mind your abnormality, that is a normal reaction. The sane appear as strange to the mad as the mad to the sane. Remain where you are. I shall give you a capsule.
Twice declared insane in one day. And they said I'd be working for a cheerful, well-spoken crowd.
Why is he wearing my uniform?
He's not a boy. She's a girl.
Why is she wearing my shoes?
She's not a girl. He's a boy. If I live to be 90, I'll never again attempt sexual intercourse.
If we change clothes, we could get things back to normal.
Well, then we'd have to account for the disappearance of the page boy and my secretary.
But they don't exist.
When people who don't exist disappear, the account of their departure must be convincing.
Is a sergeant corruptible?
No.
I must have his uniform.
Why?
To arrest myself.
I've lived too long among the mad to know what sanity is.
Once I'm arrested, we can write me off. Some glib pretext to get her out of the way, and then we can change clothes.
Oh, the dangers of the cure may outweigh the disease.
Take two of these.
What are they?
Dangerous drugs intended to relieve your pathologically elevated mood. Be careful not to exceed the stated dose. Get a grip on yourself, young woman, and release those objects for which the police of 5 counties are searching. I'm putting this youth in a padded cell. Rampant hermaphroditism must be discouraged.
Oh, I'm glad my parents are dead! This would have killed them!
I'll get the sergeant to undress. I'm suspected of the offence. I might as well commit it.
Can you give him a shot or something, sir, to damp him down?
Yes, a mild tranquilizer wouldn't harm him, I suppose. You'll find a box of antidepressants in my desk. Sergeant, kindly step this way.
You wish to speak to me, Doctor?
Yes, undress and lie on the couch.
Well, I haven't been interfered with.
Never mind about that. Strip down to your underwear.
If you make any attempt to arouse me, Doctor, I shall call for help.
It's easy to see why you've never been interfered with. You place too many obstacles in the way.
What were you doing with your trousers down, officer?
The doctor was about to examine me.
Why?
He has reason to suppose I had a nasty experience a short time ago.
What kind of experience?
He was meddled with.
By whom?
Me.
Then why are you examining him?
Find out whether his story is true.
Don't you know?
No, I didn't feel a thing.
Where is Dr Rance?
He's certifying the page, boy. He's putting him in a padded cell.
I must speak to him. Things are getting out of control.
Now, remove your trousers, Sergeant, and we'll continue. I'd like you to swallow some of these. They're quite harmless. You can take as many as you like. Now lie on the couch and concentrate on the closing chapters of your favourite work of fiction. You'll find a little summer house in the garden. You won't be disturbed in there.
The helmet!
Shoot the helmet, son!
No, sir.
Where Miss Bartley's clothes?
In the dispensary.
Oh, this place is like a madhouse. Doctor, you must help me. I keep seeing naked men.
When did these delusions first start?
They're not delusions, they're real.
Everyone who has hallucinations imagines that they're real. When did you last think you saw a naked man?
Just now. He was nude, except for a policeman's helmet.
It's not difficult to guess what's on your mind, my dear. Are you having marital troubles?
Well, I do suffer from neuritis. My husband refuses to prescribe anything.
A man shouldn't have to drug his wife in order to achieve a happy union.
I don't want drugs. I want a count taken of my sexual nature.
Your depraved appetites may in part be responsible for your husband's breakdown. Where is Dr. Prentice?
I don't know. When I returned from telephoning the station hotel, he was undressing the sergeant.
How would you describe his relations with the sergeant?
Strange and in many ways puzzling. He's called him into his room on several occasions and then abruptly dismissed him.
Playing the coquette, eh? It adds spice to a love affair. What news of the patient?
None. Except that this looks like the nightgown she was wearing.
She must be naked, then.
Yes.
And what is the report from the station hotel?
They state they have no page called Gerald Berkeley on their register. The youth who've just certified insane must be an imposter.
And what of Nicholas Beckett, the real page boy?
He hasn't returned to the hotel, and yet when he disappeared, his uniform was in my possession.
Two young people, one mad, one sexually insatiable, both naked, are roaming this house. We must at all costs prevent a collision.
Oh, Doctor, does any of this make sense to you?
It most certainly does. It's a human interest story. A respected member of the medical fraternity is married to a dazzlingly beautiful woman. Hopelessly in love, but through mutual distrust, refusing to admit it, there is little they can do to prevent a once precious relationship from turning sour. The doctor has a charming but mentally unstable patient who, at an early age, was the victim of a sexual attack. The assailant was her own father. An act of transference enables her to identify the doctor as her parent. The demands of a nymphomaniac wife and patient, coupled with those of his torrid secretary, prove too much for his sanity. He turns in his anguish to assaulting young boys. Retaining, however, some vestiges of normal feelings, he requires his minions to dress in women's clothes. This explains the desire for female garments. As his neurosis matures, we'll better be able to decide whether he intended his boys to impersonate wife, patient, or secretary.
And why did he assault the policeman?
Oh, pure madness, no other reason.
How long do you think my husband has been insane?
I trace the origins of his illness back to that first letter to the Guardian. From the startling ideas of Dr. Goebbels on the function of the male sexual organ, we pass quite logically to white gollywogs. An attempt, in fact, to change the order of creation. Homosexuality slots in here, dabbling in the black arts. The reported theft of the private parts of a well-known public figure ties in with this theory. We've phallic worship under our noses, or I'm a Dutchman. When this is published, I shall make my fortune.
What a dreadful story. I'd condemn it in the strongest terms if it were fiction.
I shan't now ask Dr. Prentice to open our mental health fair. We shall have to fall back upon one of the saner members of the cabinet. What's that?
A pillbox, Doctor. It's empty.
He's taken an overdose. We have here terrible evidence of conflict. His tormented mind, seeking release, has led him to attempt to destroy himself.
Suicide? This is so unexpected.
Just when one least expects it, the unexpected always happens. We must find it before it's too late.
Miss Barclay's hanging from the window of the padded cell, Doctor.
Where can one hide? A woman's dressed in a doctor's consulting room. Oh, my God! I've poisoned him.
He's frozen, sir.
He's defected the drug. We find the same process at work in corpses.
Get some clothes on him. Dump him outside. Let him sleep it off.
How do I explain the presence in my my garden of the drugged body of a police sergeant.
You're guilty. You don't have to explain. Only the innocent do that.
If this gets out, I'll end up selling matches.
Someone has stolen the sergeant's helmet from the hall table. Do you suppose it could be my husband?
Possibly. His behaviour is so ridiculous, one might almost suspect him of being sane. What is it, my dear? You seem to express rather more emotion than is necessary at the mention of a policeman's helmet.
I've just seen my husband dragging a woman into the shrubbery.
Was she struggling?
No.
Then a new and frightening possibility presents itself. The drugs in this box may have been used not for suicide, but for murder. Your husband has made away with his secretary.
Isn't that a little melodramatic, Doctor?
Lunatics are melodramatic. The subtleties of drama are wasted on them. The ugly shadow of Antichrist stalks this house. Having discovered her father-lover in Dr. Prentice, the patient replaces him in a psychological reshuffle by that archetypal father figure, the devil himself. Everything is now clear. The final chapters of my book are knitting together. Incest, buggery, outrageous women, strange love cults, catering to depraved appetites, all the fashionable bric-a-brac. My unbiased account of the case of the infamous sex killer Prentice will make society finally aware of the growing menace of pornography. You have under your roof, my dear, one of the most remarkable lunatics of all time. As a transvestite, fetishist, bisexual murderer, Dr. Prentice displays considerable deviation overlap. We must institute a search for the corpse. We might get necrophilia, too, as a kind of bonus. Would you confirm, Prentice, that your wife saw you carrying a body into the shrubbery?
Yes, I have an explanation for my conduct.
I am not interested in your explanations. I can provide my own. Where is your secretary?
I've given her the sack.
He's killed her and wrapped her body in a sack. The word association is very clear.
I haven't killed anyone. The person my wife saw wasn't dead. They were asleep.
He hopes for a resurrection. There's a link here with primitive religion. Why have you turned your back upon the God of your fathers?
I'm a rationalist.
You can't be a rationalist in an irrational world. It isn't rational. Was it your intention to wear these for autoerotic excitement?
No, I'm a perfectly normal man.
His belief in normality is quite abnormal. Was the girl killed before or after you took her clothes off?
She wasn't a girl. He was a man.
He was wearing a dress.
He was a man for all that.
Women wear dresses, Prentice, not men. I won't be party to the wanton destruction of a fine old tradition. Did you change clothes with your victim before it died?
Nobody died. The person you saw was a policeman who'd taken an overdose of narcotics.
Why was he dressed as a woman?
He was naked when I found him. A dress was readily to hand.
Where were his own clothes?
A boy had stolen them.
The time has come to call a halt to this Greco-Roman hallucination. Is there a straitjacket in the house?
Modern methods of treatment have rendered the straitjacket obsolete.
I am well aware of that. We still use them nonetheless. Do you have one in your possession?
Well, the porter has a few.
We can take no chances with your husband in his present condition.
Is this another of your plots to undermine my reputation for sound judgment? You treacherous harpy?
You've caused a poor girl's death, darling. You may be called upon to accept a period of restraint.
Miss Buckley isn't dead.
Produce her then, and all your difficulties will be over.
I can't.
Why not?
Because you're wearing her dress. You surprised me this morning, making an ill-timed attempt to seduce her.
If we are to save our marriage, my dear, you must admit that you prefer boys to women. You'll find me quite tolerant. In fact, I know a number of charming youths. I could pass a few of the younger ones on to you. It would raise the tone of our marriage considerably.
I won't have you making scandalous allegations in a matter of which you know nothing.
The page at the hotel accused you of behaving in an indecent manner.
That wasn't a boy, it was a girl.
Admit that you prefer your own sex to mine. I've no hesitation in saying that I do.
You filthy degenerate. Take your clothes off.
Are you going to beat me? Do if you wish. Your psychotic experiences are immensely valuable to you and should be encouraged rather than thwarted or repressed. Oh, my darling, this is the way to sexual adjustment in marriage. Oh, Doctor. During your absence, my husband became violent and struck me.
Did you enjoy it?
At first, but the pleasures of the senses quickly pall.
Was there an attempt to destroy these flowers?
They fell during the struggle.
You are aware of the plant allegory? The rose is a common cipher for a woman. He intended to do you harm.
Yes, I was beaten until I was nearly senseless.
Oh, that was a mere physical act with no special psychological significance. We must lose no time in putting Dr. Prentice under restraint. We shall need help with the enterprise. Have you no brawny youth upon whom you can call in times of stress?
I'm a married woman, Doctor. Your suggestion isn't the worst of taste.
I'd like a word with you, Doctor, about my brother, Nicholas Beckett. I've just arrested him.
Your sleep won't be disturbed tonight, my dear.
Life is full of disappointment.
Did you see Dr. Prentice in the garden?
No?
You may have had difficulty in recognizing him. He was probably dressed as a woman.
He has killed his secretary.
He can't have done. He's an OBE.
These cabalistic signs are of no more use in warding off evil than the moons and stars on a sorcerer's hat. We shall need your help in tracking down the mindless killer of young Geraldine Bartley.
Doctor, I'm obsessed with feelings of guilt. I have to make a confession.
Well, you must ring for an appointment. I can't listen to confessions off the cuff.
I am Nicholas Beckett. I have no right to wear this uniform. I did it at the doctor's request, never imagining I was unwittingly assisting a psychopath.
Then you have no brother?
No. I am a page boy employed at the station hotel. I met Dr. Prentice quite by chance. I talked to him instantly. After a short conversation during which we discussed sex matters in an uninhibited and freewheeling way, he asked me if I'd mind dressing up as a woman. I agreed to his suggestion, having heard that transvestism is no longer held to be a dangerous, debilitating vice. The doctor introduced me to his colleagues as Miss Bartley. I was to be paid a sum of money. That's why I objected to being undressed. It would have embarrassed me.
You understand what this means, Doctor?
Yes, the real Geraldine Bartley has been missing since this morning. When Dr. Prentice asked you to pose as a woman, did he give you a reason?
No.
Didn't you consider his request strange?
No?
Have you aided other men in their perverted follies?
During my last term at school, I was the slave of a corporal in the Welsh Fusiliers.
Were you never warned of the dangers inherent in such relationships?
When he was posted abroad, he left me a copy of The Way to Healthy Manhood.
A case of opening the stable door after the horse is in. Your life appears to have been spent among the more brutal and irresponsible members of society. You must help me to right the wrongs you've done.
What do you want me to do, sir? After my recent experiences, I'm understandably suspicious.
You'll find the demands of medicine easier to satisfy than those of the army. This is a straitjacket. We need your help in persuading Dr. Prentice to put it on. There may be violence. His body has a mind of its own. Have you a gun?
I think so. You will make sure before you fire that my husband isn't waving an olive branch.
An olive branch can be used as an offensive weapon. If there's trouble, I shall blow him from the floor.
Are you going to flush him from his hiding place, sir?
Yes, really we should hire beaters, but they'll expect to have their fares paid from Scotland. I'm loath to certify a fellow psychiatrist. It causes such bad feelings within the profession.
Take no chances. Call for help immediately you see Dr. Prentice. Try not to break his arms or legs. It makes the job of adjusting the jacket doubly difficult.
Miss Bartley's hanging from the window of a padded cell. When I asked her to undress, she became hysterical.
Come along now, sir. I'd like you to put this on.
I'd like you to cooperate with me in getting things back to normal in this house.
You can rely on me, sir.
It would help me considerably if you just take your clothes off.
If I do that, will you put this on?
Of course not. That is a straitjacket. I won't be party to kinky capers. You've lived too long at the station hotel to know how decent people behave. Now do as I say and undress.
I'm ready to be examined when you are, Doctor.
They're combing the grounds for us. They've got guns. What shall we do?
You must lose no time in getting undressed.
He is a maniac. He's murdered a woman and hidden her body somewhere.
Who is responsible for these vile stories?
Dr. Rance is having you certified. I've got to get you into this.
I'm ready when you are, Doctor.
Give this youth the clothes you're wearing. Put this on. Give the sergeant back his uniform. The next passes through will confiscate my wife's dress, and all our problems will be solved.
I was on the lavatory when this man appeared and fired a gun at me. I'd like your opinion as to the extent of the damage.
Come with me and lie down.
The woman is insatiable.
Unless you make love to me, I shall shoot you.
A husband cannot be expected to give his best at gunpoint.
Oh, Doctor, the world is full of naked men running in all directions.
Where do you keep your tranquilizers?
There.
Take some. At last we've caught the patient.
I'm not a patient. I'm telling the truth.
It's far too late to tell the truth. These final harrowing scenes will be lavishly illustrated with graphs showing the effect of her downfall upon her poor, tortured mind. Meanwhile, in his temple of love, the hideous Dr. Prentice and his acolyte are praying to their false gods, unaware that the forces of reason have got their measure. Fetch a syringe.
What have I done to deserve this? I've always led such a respectable life.
Your mind has given way. You will find it an invaluable experience in your efforts to come to terms with the 20th century living. Why did you persuade your father to kill Geraldine Berkeley?
I am Geraldine Berkeley.
You imagine you're a secretary. In fact, you are the leading player in one of the most remarkable and sinister stories in modern history. The extent to which you influenced your employer and contributed to his breakdown has yet to be measured.
This is dreadful, dreadful.
I'm glad you're beginning to adopt a more responsible attitude. It's most encouraging. Where is the body?
I don't know.
Are you under the seal of the confessional? Into what black rites have you been initiated by that foul priest of the unknown? Let me cure your neurosis. It's the only thing I want out of life.
What is the meaning of this exhibition?
It's a new and hitherto untried form of therapy. I think it's viable under the circumstances.
Your treatment seems designed to plunge the patient deeper into lunacy rather than achieve any lasting cure.
Anyone whose subconscious is as quirky as yours could hardly be expected to understand my methods.
What do you mean by that?
I refer to those manifestations of the penis which you encounter with an increasing degree of frequency.
You've seen them too?
Well, what does that prove? Merely that you've given me your wretched disease.
Should I swab the patient's arm?
You don't imagine I'm wasting this stuff on her, do you? £12.50 an ounce, it'd be criminal. Go and call the police.
There's a policeman outside naked and covered in blood.
The bounds of decency have long been overstepped in this house. Your subconscious cannot be encouraged in its skullduggery.
Is this blood real?
No.
Can you see it?
Yes.
And what explanation is there?
I'm a scientist. I state facts. I cannot be expected to provide explanations. Reject all paranormal phenomena. It's the only way to remain sane.
It seems real.
Who are you to decide what reality is? Remain where you are. I shall call the police.
I'm in pain. I've been shot. Call a doctor.
Oh, I'm losing my mind.
Help me! I'm suffering untold anguish. Untie me!
Why are you tied up?
Dr. Rance did it. He says I'm mad.
He's a psychiatrist. He must know. He wouldn't put you in a straitjacket if you were sane. He'd have to be mad.
He is mad.
Is she mad?
She thinks she is. She imagines you're a figment of her imagination.
She can see me. Doesn't that prove I'm real?
No, she's mad.
If you think I'm a phantom of your subconscious, you must be mad.
I am mad.
My wife just shot at me. She thinks I'm mad.
You are mad. I've got to get you into this straitjacket.
Put that gun down. A husband must be allowed to put his wife into a straitjacket. It's one of the few pleasures left in modern marriage. Oh, you should have that wound attended to. Have you got a handkerchief?
No.
Well, I might.
No.
Stay where you are, Doctor. Your conduct today has been a model of official irresponsibility and bloody-mindedness. I'm going to certify you.
No, I am going to certify you.
I have the weapon, you have the choice. What is it to be? Either madness or death?
Neither of your alternatives would enable me to continue to be employed by Her Majesty's government.
Ah, that isn't true. The higher reaches of the civil service are recruited entirely from corpses or madmen. Press the alarm. We've overloaded the circuit! Run, trap!
I hope the security arrangements in the wards are as efficient as those in your consulting room. We could starve to death.
A fitting tribute to the effectiveness of our early warning system.
Since neither of us can escape, your deterrent is useless. Put it down. Ha-ha! I'll have you in a jacket within the hour. It's a hat trick.
Oh, is this a record for you?
No, by no means. I once put an entire family into a communal straitjacket.
Your mother must have been proud of you.
No, she wasn't, I'm afraid. It was my own family, you see. I have a picture of the scene at home, my foot placed squarely upon my father's head. I sent a copy of it to Anna Freud and had a charming postcard in reply.
What about me, sir? I'm not mad.
You're not human.
I can't be an hallucination. Look at that wound. That's real.
It appears to be.
If the pain's real, I must be real.
I'd rather not get involved in metaphysical speculation.
But this young fellow is the page by the station hotel. He misbehaved himself with my wife. Was he an hallucination when he did that?
Your wife is subject to a kind of nervous disorder which leads her to believe that she is being pursued by unclothed male figures. This young man is one of them. If he is her assailant, it follows that the assault was also a fabrication of her diseased mind.
Sergeant Match wishes to arrest the young man.
The sergeant, too, may not exist. According to your wife, he also appeared to her naked. For all we know, he may be a kind of incubus employed by Scotland Yard. He admits that his own brother was a figment of his imagination, thus confirming my own law that the relations of apparitions are also apparitions. What have you done with Geraldine Barclay?
I'm here.
The story you're about to hear concerns solely with the heart. The mind and its mysteries could not have been further from my thoughts when, early this morning, I persuaded that young woman to take her clothes off.
Mrs Prentice mistook my dress for her own, and by an oversight you mistook me for a patient. Dr Prentice asked me to keep quiet in order to protect his good name. What could I do? I was terrified of exposure.
You were naked at the time.
Yes. Under duress, I agreed to help the doctor. I've never ceased reproaching myself. The whole day has been spent fighting to retain my self-respect.
Really, sir? And your wife? I'd be willing to stake my professional reputation on the fact that this girl was the victim of an incestuous attack. I won't go back on my diagnosis. My publishers will sue me for loss of royalties.
I'm sure my typing speed has been affected by what I've suffered today. And I wish to report the loss of my lucky elephant charm.
Is this the piece of jewellery to which you refer?
Yes. It has great sentimental value.
I've got a brooch like that. Here, you see? They make a pair.
Let me see those pieces of jewellery. A single brooch may be made from these two fragments. Oh, my heart is beating like a wild thing.
Two elephants carrying a richly engraved howdah, on which is seated a young and beautiful woman, perhaps a princess of the royal line. Magnificent example of Oriental craftsmanship. How did you know that this was a single piece?
It belonged to me once. Many years ago, when I was a young woman, I was raped in a linen cupboard at the station hotel. As the man left me, he pressed that brooch into my hands in part payment.
And how did these children come to be in possession of the separate halves?
I paid for my misdemeanor by conceiving twins. It was impossible for me to keep them. I was by then engaged to be married to a promising young psychiatrist. I decided to abandon them to their fate. I broke the brooch in half and pinned a separate piece to each babe. I then placed them at either end of the small country town in which I was resident. Some kind people must have brought the children up as their own. Oh, children, I am your mother. Can you ever forgive me for what I did?
What kind of mother must you have been to stay alone at the station hotel?
I was employed as a chambermaid. I did it for a joke in the 60s. The effect of taxation on the middle classes had to be seen to be believed.
Was our father also employed by the station hotel?
I never saw your father. The incident occurred during a power cut. I became pregnant while I waited for normal service to be resumed.
You'll find an inscription on the back of the brooch, sir, to Lillian from Avis, Christmas 1959. I found that brooch many years ago. It was lying on the pavement outside a large department store.
Who were Lillian and Avis?
I've no idea. It fell from the collar of Pekingese. Lillian and Avis may have been the creature's owners. I haven't seen it since I pressed it into the hands of a chambermaid, whom I debauched shortly before my marriage.
Now I understand why you suggested that we spend our wedding night in a linen cupboard.
Well, I wish to recreate a moment that was very precious to me. If you had given in to my request, our marriage would never have foundered.
From this time on, we'll never make love except in a linen cupboard. It's the least I can do after the years of suffering I've caused you.
If you are this child's father, then she is the victim of an incestuous attack. My book can be written in good faith.
And so am I, Doctor. My son has a collection of indecent photographs which prove beyond doubt that he made free with me in the same hotel, indeed in the same linen cupboard in which his conception took place.
Oh, what joy this discovery brings me. Double incest is even more likely to produce a bestseller than murder, and that is as it should be, for love must produce greater joy than violence. We are approaching what our racier novelists term the climax.
Will someone produce, or cause to be produced, the missing parts of Sir Winston Churchill?
We have no knowledge of such things.
I must ask for your cooperation in a matter of vital importance to this country. Who was the last person to see Mrs. Berkeley dead?
The undertaker.
And did he have no words of comfort for the only living descendant of a woman violated by the era of 1940?
He handed me a box.
What did it contain?
I assumed it held the clothes my stepmother wore on the day of her death. I was going to deliver them to some poor and needy person.
Where is the box? The great man can once again take up his place in the High Street as an example to us all of the spirit that won the Battle of Britain.
How much more inspiring if in those dark days we had seen what we see now. Instead, we had to be content with a cigar, the symbol falling far short, as we now realize, of the object itself.
Well, Sergeant, you have been instrumental in uncovering a number of remarkable peccadilloes today. I hope you'll cooperate with us in keeping them out of the papers.
I will, sir.
I'm glad you don't despise tradition. Let us put our clothes on and face the world.